All right, and we are live. I've decided to posh up the show a little bit today. So I brought in a BBC presenter so we can get that, lovely warm accent to fulfill our hearts. Andrew Gold, how are you doing?
Good. How are you? There's a lot of pressure now on my accent. I hope it doesn't slip and the mask will fall or something. But your accent sounds lovely to me, actually. Americans are always so complimentary of ours. And then when I go to America, I love hearing the richness of the diversity of accents as well. It's really beautiful to our ears as well. So I guess it's the exoticism, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting. Here, my accent is would be considered continental or
Mm,
pretty flat because I'm from Arizona. So
right.
I don't have the rhythms of a southern accent or northeast. So in many ways, it's probably a little bit bland.
Yeah, it
But
sounds that way to you. That's the thing. Everybody thinks their accent is bland. You know what's nice is like, I don't know, Kelsey Grammer. That's a nice voice and accent, isn't it? And
oh
then
yeah,
yeah, and
Kevin
then, I
Klein,
like. Oh, yeah, and wait, who?
Kevin Klein.
Kevin Klein. Who's Kevin Klein? I'm just
He
going to
was
look
in
him
A
up.
Fish Called Wanda.
Oh, I
He
saw
played
that.
Otto.
That's John Cleese.
Yes, Kevin Klein was the guy who got the Academy Award though.
Oh, yes, I
He
recognise
has
him. I've just looked.
I call his a theatrical Broadway voice.
Mm,
Kelsey Grammer
mm,
has that as too. It's a
yeah.
very rich projected, it's not English, it's not American, it's theatrical in my mind.
Oh, the mid Atlantic accent that never existed in real life, but it was in movies in the 1950s and 60s, and I guess Fraser Crane has that accent as well. This sort of somewhere between the English and American. We're not quite sure what it is. That fast talky thing they used to do.
Oh yeah, I could totally see that. And before we get off of it, because I know you like exploring these different things and you're a polyglot,
Mm.
I don't know if you're familiar with Tangier Island.
Tangier Island, no.
Tangier Island is a small island in the middle of Chesapeake Bay, and it was never really settled
Huh.
or discovered. It's kind of like people, you have to go there by ferry. It takes 20 minutes or longer. And because they've been so isolated, their accent is 300 years old.
Oh,
So they
amazing! I love
sound more
that.
like real English than you or I.
That's amazing. Is that a bit like the Amish people as well? Do they have that?
Well, the Amish
Mm.
are of a German kind of descent. So I think
Because
that
it's
it
got
may be a
yeah,
little bit different, but
yeah.
we have a little bit of it here in where I live now, which is north. Well, I live in Hampton, which is
Yeah.
Hampton Roads area, Norfolk. Um, the city I live in was founded in 1610. So
Wow.
it's one of the earliest, longest going. And we have kind of that voice from back there.
Well, that's great. That's real history, especially in the states. To get that history is, it's impressive.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm like, oh, it's almost it's over 400 years old, and you're like, yeah, we have some of those buildings. Got a couple castles, about
Yeah.
900,000.
Oh
So,
man. Yeah. No, that's old over in that continent. That's old stuff. That really is. I mean, here I'm back in England now. I've just moved back, so
mhm.
we're a little bit more used to the old crumbly stuff. I read an interesting thing the other day that apparently, because a lot of modern buildings are quite ugly, not modern, but like 70s and 80s
Yeah,
are considered ugly.
brutalism.
And yeah, right. But apparently, like a lot of architects would say that they're much better from an architectural aesthetic point of view than sort of the Georgian and Victorian houses we have around the UK. It's just that we've decided. I had Will Storr, a journalist, on my podcast recently. He talks
Mhm.
about the status game a lot, and we've decided that we sort of associate that with Queen Victoria and all that sort of noblesse. So we it changes how we perceive these old world buildings.
I would also push it or push back and say we associate it with communism
Which ones?
because the brutalistic
Yeah, there's
architecture
that.
is very structural, no frills. It looks
Sure.
like a bunker.
Yeah.
And that did kind of come out of the Eastern Bloc and Soviet Union and a lot of that. So, yes, he's right. We do romanticize, Victorian era and things like that. But I think we also don't like the utilitarian
No,
stripped down,
absolutely.
or even Swedish is an interesting one because they kind of have some of that design. Very clean lines, very contemporary, very IKEA look.
Yeah, I was going to say IKEA. It's like a country of IKEA, of course. I
Hmm.
was just living in Berlin for 2.5 years, and I mean, I hope nobody from Berlin is offended, but an uglier city you will not find in terms of the blocks, the eastern blocks. I mean, obviously there are beautiful parts as well, but where I was on the eastern side in the old East and the Soviet stuff, and it gets you down. After 2.5 years there, it started to wear me and my girlfriend down. And by the end, we were just like, and obviously beautiful parks, beautiful culture in many ways. But, I don't mean to offend any people from East Berlin, but it started to, to come back to the UK now. We've decided we're moving to Bristol, which is one of the most picturesque cities in the country. We just wanted something that was just picturesque and beautiful and away from that style. So, I mean, architecture can have a real effect on your mental health, I think.
Oh, for sure. And I guess it's annoying the chat, so we need to exercise the architecture out of
What does
the
architecture have to do with
conversation.
exorcism? Very good point.
They're keeping me on track here.
He's here for exorcism. I
That's
didn't
right.
turn up for architecture. What is this architecture lecture I'm getting?
Well, there are churches.
Yes.
By the way, I was looking at one of the chats, your appearances, and people were really upset about that.
Oh,
Like defending it, and somebody was going off. I forgot what it was, but I was like, they were saying that's a Lutheran priest. He's not really a Catholic. So I wanted to first start off with that. Was it a Lutheran priest or was it a Catholic priest?
he's Lutheran. Yeah, we didn't specify, I don't think, in the film, and obviously Catholicism has that modern history with exorcism and an old world history as well, but it really took off after the film, The Exorcist. It came back into Catholicism. People don't think so much about Lutheranism, about Lutherans these days. We didn't even know when we started. We just assumed it was some sort of evangelical Catholic, but the priest, the padre as we call him, is apparently Lutheran. But as far as I'm concerned, he's sort of a lone ranger with some sort of very vague connections to some sort of Lutheran school of something or other. So those commenters are correct. It's just, it wasn't that important to me. I mean, it's all religion as far as I'm concerned, but I can see how some people wanted to get that out there.
Well, especially if they're Catholic and, they're already hearing about another subject that you cover a little bit, which is now, this is YouTube, so it's like I have to tap dance around terms.
Yeah.
But shall we say predators of
minor attracted
underage
persons.
people?
Can you say that? Minor attracted persons?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure, that's a nice PC term.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. I've been looking at that. But as a journalist, I'm constantly trying to almost outdo the last project in terms of how controversial it is. And I'm sure you feel the same. You're a journalist and interviewer yourself, and it is something else. Maybe the rush you get, the adrenaline you get when you're talking to someone who is genuinely, somebody you would never meet in real life, who is that controversial. So I embedded myself with those people, the non-offending ones of them, for
As
2
far as you
years,
know.
and it's 100% as far as I know. I have to take their word. Some are lying to me, absolutely. But that was a very, very crazy couple of years, and that was straight after The Exorcist, who himself was getting involved with not underage women, but women that he shouldn't have been getting involved with.
Well, okay, I study or have a lot of cult stuff on. And maybe I'm projecting a little bit, but I feel like he's a bit of a cult leader in a sense.
Yeah.
He has a very strong following, and a lot of cult leaders, especially males, well, it's good to be king. They manage to bed all the cult members' wives and children and whatever else. It's a very handy tool. So it's not completely surprising that I think you said the majority of people he exorcised were females.
Yeah. There's that, and I don't know how. Again, I always have to be careful what I say because I'm a journalist and not a scientist. But the clinician I spoke to, a psychiatrist in Argentina, who told me he was very used to not just this particular exorcist, but other priests and shamans and all sorts of people using and taking advantage of young people. It is often young women. And he said, this clinician, that women in particular have a very difficult time in adolescence with their mental health. So again, I don't mean to generalize. It might just be Argentina he's talking about. It's a very patriarchal society that, and where we were, there was not much education. So you couldn't really say, oh, I'm suffering with depression and things like that. That doesn't mean anything to them. It makes a lot more sense for them to say, I've got a demon inside me. So I think it was a mixture of the women in that particular part of the world apparently were a little bit more vulnerable. And as you say, it's probably his target as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you're going to go after whatever you can. Yeah. And that's why I question your minor attracted individuals who you mentioned being in positions that put them in proximity of what they're attracted to.
Yeah,
well, that's problematic.
That is one of the no, I know what you mean, and you end up using it. I do the same thing, trigger warning and all that stuff, but it comes out. But yeah, so going back to that topic, the P word. So I was in Berlin and I came across a clinic. It's the only clinic in the world, and it's state sponsored. That they never report those people to authorities ever, and they couldn't even if they wanted to, because they don't take their details. So I came across these people, and I met a lot of them over the years. And you're absolutely right in saying all I can do is take their word for it. Some of them will be lying to me and they would be offending, and some won't be, and they'll be suffering with their demons themselves. But the clinicians say there are three major risk factors for these people. One is being drunk. If you're drunk, you lose your inhibitions. Sure. Another is stigmatization, which is us saying, we hate you. If we say to these people, and this is a very difficult and complex thing that we could talk about for hours, this particular one, but if we say to criminals in general, not just those people, but all criminals, you say to them, hey, we believe in you, you're a good member of society, we want to help you, they are less likely to reoffend. So that's the second one. The third one, as you state, is being around children. It's as simple as that. Mm-hmm. And that is one that even the ones who are the most devout non-offenders among the people I spoke to have got cognitive biases that will tell them that, no, I should be around children. They constantly find themselves in jobs like teaching and, soccer coach and that kind of thing.
Scout leader.
Yeah. And as a journalist, you don't want to go for those sort of, easy pickings, right? That's the stereotype. It is also true. And it's very dangerous to say that, of course, because the vast majority of scout leaders and even religious leaders are not that way inclined, but some are. And a lot of those people, the minor attracted people, do go for those jobs. And they say to me, like, no, you don't understand. If I'm around them, then I'm less likely to offend. And I'm like, are you hearing yourself? Like, that if you're not around them, you can't offend. It's literally impossible. And right. They go, no, you don't get it. It's, it's a cognitive bias, I suppose.
It's funny you said stereotype. How does something become a stereotype?
Yeah, well.
That's one of those annoying conversations, but it's kind of true. It's like, we always want to bend over and say, okay, it's a stereotype, blah, 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 blah. But there's a reason it's a stereotype.
That's true. But it's also dangerous to talk about stereotypes. I'm trying to think. I've thought the same thing that you're saying. I've thought that as well. To be less dangerous, I can talk about my own heritage and stereotypes about it. And I'm from a Jewish family, right? There simply are a lot of Jewish people in the media. There are a lot of Jewish people who, in those kinds of roles. There are many of us who are not as well. So of course, it's very offensive when people say the stereotype, because I like to think, well, I'm not that guy. I didn't get any of those advantages. I don't think. But it doesn't mean that there's no basis on that stereotype either. That's a culture thing. And I don't think it needs to be looked at negatively either. I mean, there's a reason that those that group of people would have wanted to protect themselves in any way they can and rise to the top of various professions. And you can look at all stereotypes that way. I think we can dress them up in a better way rather than seeing them as negatives. But I absolutely take your point that stereotypes often come from reality.
Yeah, and also you will find a lot of Jews, and I have a lot of friends who are Jews, another stereotype, because I said as a friend, that means I'm really anti-Semitic in some quarters.
Yeah,
But
that's complete nonsense as well. That drives me mad as well. There's so many people I know, like people at university, the kinds of people young white people who are like very woke. I know people don't like the word woke, and they hate when people say, my stepmom does sometimes say, like, I've got black friends, and people go, that means you're racist. But the thing is, she actually does have a lot of black friends, and those people at the universities don't. And so I think, well, she actually really does. So it doesn't mean she's not racist. No, that's the problem. That's what I think everyone wants to say. Like, that's not enough to say that you're not racist. But it doesn't mean they are racist. It is something. It means they're less likely to be, you would think, right?
Exactly. And what I was going to say is that, Jews being in certain positions, well, they were forced in those positions by a lot of societies they lived in. For one, they weren't allowed to own property. Well, if you can't own property, you might become a banker, because then you could handle money and exchanges. And then everybody hated them because they were the middle people. So there's a lot to it all. And while it's a traditional thing, it's a path that they had an opportunity.
Yeah. No, I appreciate your nuanced view on that. The other thing was that Jews could be the lenders back in the Middle Ages when it wasn't allowed in Christianity for whatever reason. So that there's so many reasons that cultures develop and do things in different ways. And I do think it's a shame that we just go, no, there's no cultures that are different. And well, I mean, there quite clearly are. Everyone has different histories and groups and things, and we should celebrate that sometimes.
Yeah, a book to read is Thomas Sowell. Black rednecks, white liberals.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Check it out sometime. He has a whole chapter about middlemen cultures in there, goes deep into Jews, Armenians, and a lot of negative stereotypes in black culture. Where did they come from? White rednecks. It literally came from England, and I forgot the areas, but herding areas. And he tracked the language, the disrespect, the honor culture, all of it. It is so fascinating.
Oh, fascinating. Oh, it sounds like a sort of hillbilly elegy, very different, but that kind of in that neck of the woods. That was great.
Oh yeah, it was. Of course, he's no longer celebrated.
I have no idea.
Oh, he's a right-wing guy, so his book it no longer counts because he's too right-wing. It's very annoying.
But the book itself explained why he might be right-wing. Hey, what does this have to do with exorcisms, Eric? Everyone's going to kick off in the views, aren't they?
They're slowly coming in. I'm seeing my friends. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I don't. By the way, you can talk about whatever you want. I don't care as long as they're not getting upset with us.
Oh no, it's fine. I think that we eventually get to it, but I love discovering the different topics, and I like to wander. And I'd say 90% of your interviews are about the exorcism. So
that's true.
That's true. Information that
it's a relief actually to talk about other things as well. I've spoken because I had a lot of, and you probably have you had anti-woke people and like sort of thought leader people like James Lindsay kind of.
That's kind of my crowd. I don't have access to Lindsay. Love to have him on, but I just
begged him enough. just messaged him enough. That was all it was. It was like my 5th week of the podcast, and I had like no listeners at the time, and I just sort of pushed. But although the thing is, it was the beginning of lockdown, so it was lockdown really. Like these people got like 1 million if you get in there fast enough. I'm trying to get Peter Boghossian now. Oh, he's
quit.
He literally just replied to an email about 5 minutes ago.
You might get him. He just resigned his post in Portland.
Yeah, but that's why I emailed him, and the thing is, he'll be over. So he's just written back going, deluged now, forwarding to my assistant, PB. What does PB mean?
Maybe that's...
Oh, his name, Peter Boghossian.
Okay. There you go. You see, Andrew is a journalist. He's a deep digger.
He didn't even put capital letters for PB, and he didn't even put a full stop. He really is in either he's really busy or he wants to look really. Yeah, well that as well, or wants to look busy. That's what I would do if I wanted to look busy. I wouldn't put a full stop, period. Sorry, but yeah, no, it's good to chat about other stuff. I talk about the Exorcist stuff a lot, and I talk also about the minor attracted person stuff, which I love talking about because it is controversial and stuff as well.
Well, I'll tell you somebody to get with and get on his show, and that's Thaddeus Russell.
Never heard of who's Thaddeus Russell.
Thaddeus Russell, he's a historian, PhD. He wrote the book, I can't remember the names, but it's A Renegade History of the United States.
Okay.
Everything he believes in is kind of contrary. Like, there were people who, in the colonial times in the United States, who ran off with the Indians.
Right.
They literally went native. The term went native came from that. And he writes about that. He also writes about the slaves who were freed in the 30s and 40s, saying that life sucked, that it was better before. So almost anything he does is contrarian. And I just have a feeling that you would really enjoy that because he's gone deep into it. He has deep concerns about minor attracted individuals and how they're treated. Like, there's one place in the United States where they all have to live by the airport in one trailer park because all the laws say that they have to be X distance away from any school. So there was literally one little postage spot in the whole place that they all could be.
Man, that's a scary place. There's I think sort of 1% of the population are those that way inclined. So they have, if they got together like that, they're larger than the US Army in the US.
Well, yeah.
There's a thought. There's a thought. You remind me of a little bit. Do you know Chris Ryan? Tangentially
speaking. Yeah.
Yeah, I was on that recently, and it's a similar. Not necessarily one thing. Just sort of move around and have a nice conversation. It's great.
Cool. I like doing that because, one, I've changed it to 100% live for just that reason, and I'm actually wanting to get your psychopath on. Ooh. If I can. I might ask for contact for her.
Which one? Emmy Thomas.
Yeah, Emmy Thomas. Yeah.
So there are two. So because there was also, do you know of Dr. James Fallon?
I've had him on
twice. Oh, he's great.
Oh, by the way, there's a perfect example of my style. We talked about his time with George Carlin off stage.
Oh, wait, I think he might have mentioned George Carlin, and I kept pretending I knew who that was.
You didn't know.
That's okay. Right, he did. Interview he talked about. Oh, it's the States, isn't it? I don't know all your guys over there. Oh God, but yeah, he did mention something George Carlin had said. I think it was him, and I was like, And at one point, because I yawn a lot, just anyway, even if I'm not tired, I just do. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's a nervous thing, and I was stifling them because I'm talking to a psychopath.
Yawn.
Yeah.
So you get a double chin. You can hide it better.
I'm getting there. My double chin's all in my stomach for some reason, a triple stomach, but it's getting there. But I did my nostrils. What's the word? I can't remember what the word is when they go like that.
Flare.
Yeah, and that happened because I was trying to stifle a yawn, and he was talking, and then he suddenly looked at the camera, and he just goes, "Am I boring you?" And I went, "Oh no," and he went, "I saw you just stifle a yawn," and I went, "No, I didn't." And the scariest thing, honestly, I love talking to psychopaths for that reason. And you're welcome to talk to Emmy Thomas. I'll send an email after the show connecting you. She doesn't always reply, but we can try.
Oh, that's fine. Please do, though. I was interested in your interviews with her, and I thought about it. She was bragging about how BBC Radio, she controlled everything. And I was like, this is the environment where maybe you'll turn your camera on because it is live. Yeah. I'm not going to change any word you say. Everybody here can hear it. You have witnesses. You have a chat. There's a full record. So
she does do some stuff where she's on camera. It was called Psychopathy Is.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting because we're going to bring up James Fallon again. Everybody check out his episodes. Whatever you think, he's very glib and amusing as an individual. But I have the behavior panel on him, and they don't think he's a psychopath.
Okay.
So
what do you?
I don't.
Right.
I'm not an expert, dude. I just know him.
It's really really hard, isn't it? And Emmy Thomas, I got all the comments on YouTube are people going, she's not a psychopath, she's not a psychopath, and I think part of us wants to believe that a psychopath has to be someone who's just running around screaming and murdering.
Yeah, that's
And
not it. It's hard to tell. I don't know with her yet. That's why I kind of want to get more exposure
yeah,
and bring her, amongst my crowd, and everybody can look and see.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, she's my neck's hurting from football, but yeah, sorry, but she's I don't know. The thing I was thinking, it was almost a catch-22 for me, because I was thinking, well, maybe James and maybe Emmy Thomas, maybe they're not psychopath, but you'd have to be, if not a psychopath, and at least something of a narcissist or something extreme to be going around presenting yourself as such.
Well, and that's one interesting thing. Every psychopath is a narcissist, but not every narcissist is a psychopath.
Yeah, so they
That's
might
one
just be
basic
narcissists.
rule.
Although, oh, I don't know. She said something to me about the self, and she said that in her experience, psychopaths don't have a self as such. So they, in that sense, I think she might argue that they're not narcissistic. And that's why she doesn't worry about, like, she takes risks and flies off the top of cliffs and cars and things, because she doesn't worry about her health in the future. There's no sort of her. She
Yeah,
just
impulse problem.
is. Yeah.
And James Fallon says the same thing. And he wrote about it in his book, how he
Hmm.
put his entire family in danger and whatever else, just because, well, it's fun, having a good time.
Yeah, yeah, it's hard to know. There's something, that's all, and they're a lot of fun to talk to. It's really fun to sort of say. I said to Emmy Thomas, would you kill me, or would you, if you were watching me getting stabbed in the face right
No,
now?
you
How would
did
you?
it twice. Actually, that was my
Yeah,
favorite part. I'm laughing because I'm like, he's going to keep having her back to say, do you care if I die yet? Are you sure? Do you
yeah,
care?
yeah. She said I was a 4 out of 10 or something, didn't she? I was like, how are we
That was
getting
the
along? And
first
she was,
time.
yeah, she was like, I would say 4 out of 10. I was shocked at that because I was getting on with her, but it's so much fun talking to people like that because you
Yeah,
don't
but
have
then you
to
said as an
worry.
interviewer and you went way up in her esteem.
Then she
That
was
was a
to 10.
psychopathic type of response because that's
Do you think?
what are you doing for me?
Right. That's true. That's true. She might have also realised I was being a bit glib and silly as well, so she just went up to 10. When you talk to people like that, I guess, and you must find this as well. Do you find this, that because they either have no empathy or they purport to have no empathy, and they're not trying to show that they have empathy or they're morally righteous, you don't have to worry so much about what you say. You can say whatever you want. You don't have to be this moral. Do you know what I mean? I just sort of relax in front of a psychopath.
Yeah, it depends on the person. And this is why I love talking to you about this stuff. And just to let everybody know that if this wasn't being recorded, I'd be trying to talk to you like this now because I just love talking shop. But
It's great.
I always go in trying to figure out an angle to put them on their back foot. And I know that sounds weird, but it's like if I can get them to laugh or just be surprised, dig up a little piece of knowledge, figure out something that is near and dear to them, whatever. So I had John McAfee on, for example.
Yes. Oh, yes, that's right. Amazing. The late John McAfee. I tried to get him on as well.
And he's a character. But
Psychopath.
yeah,
Must be.
I'm going to
Must have
say
been.
I don't know because there's
Nah.
so much damage with drugs. And if you do enough drugs, you're going to lose your sense of personality anyway. The same way you were talking about child attracted need to get away from alcohol. Well,
Yeah.
he was very much a drunk, very much a drug taker.
Yeah.
Admittedly, he said, I've taken every drug, whatever. He drank at least 2 bottles of bourbon a day. So hardcore.
Yeah.
But I started off with him saying, are you running for president or are you just a candidate on the run? And he thought that was funny.
But that's not putting him on the back foot, is it? If he finds it funny.
Well, I don't mean, I mean off balance in a way. Like I didn't expect that. Any way to just say, okay, now you're going to pay attention to what I'm saying because you
That's
don't know where
interesting.
I'm coming from, what I'm going to do. And that's, I don't know if it's a style. It's just something that I do.
I think
And I
it's a
find
style. Yeah.
it gets
Yeah.
better interviews.
I think that is a style. It's not too dissimilar to what I do, and I think I come at it from a different angle. I'm sort of almost overly informal and overly casual, but then will also say, as you say, ridiculous things. Although I didn't think about why I do it. It's just an urge I have. I want to say stuff that another interviewer might not have said, and as you get something out, because all these people, they're all doing the circuit, aren't they? They're just going on. People often say to me, like, oh, wouldn't you like to have Ricky Gervais on, someone huge like that, right? Firstly, it's going to be impossible because he's just too big of a name. But then if you did, like, what are you going to ask Ricky Gervais that he's been on a billion things? Like, what are you going to say that's different and it makes him smile and makes him show something different? So I just think I'd rather not. I'd rather have someone who's not really, fine. There've been people on my podcast, like there was a woman I found who could remember everything in her whole life back to the womb. She could even had memory of the womb. Yeah, crazy. And the thing is, she's autistic, so she didn't make for a great conversationalist because she was very slow. But then her mother came along after sort of 20 minutes and helped out, and then we were going, and it was great just hearing and then the mum would go, remember what happened on the 24th of February 1997? And she was like, yes, we went out to the cinema and saw Babe or whatever, and it was just like amazing. And she hadn't been on any other podcast at that point, and that was a real. Then whatever you say is something she's never heard before, and that's you know what I mean.
Oh, and to suit your audience too. By the way, speaking of Didax, Alex Jones.
Yeah,
he's very close. I think he's lost some of it, but he has that kind of weird memory where everything he ever reads and time and stuff. And yes, I know he's the most evil man on the internet, but it's interesting type of
we were talking earlier about really rich, fantastic American voices, and his is up there with the best. If he was a less evil person, we'd be celebrating that voice. I mean, it does sometimes go too far, doesn't it? It can be too raspy, but his voice is something. It's a tour de force.
Oh yeah, he's always performing.
Yeah,
I think of him as like a P.T. Barnum.
Who's P.T. Barnum?
P.T. Barnum? He was the famous ringmaster, con person. Wow, you are definitely an Anglophile. This is fascinating.
I could talk to you. I'll talk to you about all the Tottenham Hotspur football players in England. That's it.
Dead.
Oh.
And I don't know much about the royal family.
Oh yeah, well, to be honest, neither do I. You got to go to Canada to find out about the royal family. They love them over there.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, Australians as well.
Well, they're Commonwealth, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, anytime I meet a Canadian, they want to know about the royal family. They're obsessed with it. They love the royal family. Obviously, not all of them love it, but it doesn't. They don't even enter my mind. They're just sort of a tourist attraction, I think. Until the Prince Andrew stuff happened, then it was like, oh, a bit of horrible gossip here.
Yeah. Yeah, good times there. Okay, so you moved to Argentina.
Yeah.
And spent a few years there. Now, you did your movie on Exorcism because you were seeing that. Did you ever look into the Nazi connection?
Yes, yeah. So, I'd been watching sort of a lot of Louis Theroux. In America, they say Theroux sometimes. Paul Theroux, the travel writer's son, Justin Theroux, Jennifer Aniston's ex-husband's cousin. He's a big, like a Michael Moore, but apolitical in the UK, and he makes a lot of those documentaries. And I wanted to get into that, so I was making sort of, searching for UFOs with believers and trying to find out about belief and that kind of thing. Got to Argentina because I was really into languages. Spanish was my second one at the time. It was quite a while ago now. And yeah, what should I do as documentary? So yeah, lists and lists of things for like what I'm gonna try and sell to TV channels, and failed with all of them. But on that list was Nazis and did Hitler really go to Bariloche or Patagonia, which I don't think he did. But I don't know anywhere near enough about it to really, have any authority on the subject. But it was one of the potential things I was looking at, and I thought the BBC might be interested in that as well. And I did meet a guy who wrote a book about it. We were both on a chat show in Argentina, so I was sitting next to him, and he had his little book, and he was convinced that Hitler moved after the war to Argentina with some of his biggest cronies, and lived out the rest of his life there. And there are German colonies. There are places where I believe people speak German in Argentina. There are certainly Welsh little villages as well where they speak Welsh, and in Chile as well, the south of Chile. But the thing was, after the war, the Second World War in Argentina, they were just welcoming whoever they could get. So they were like welcoming loads and loads of Jews and loads of Nazis, and now you've got a big mix. And it's a funny thing because, like, my girlfriend is Argentine and she went to school, obviously, because people go to school, but she went to, high school, and there would be like, she'd be in a class with several people whose grandparents were very possibly escaped Nazis. And she herself is Jewish, and a lot of her friends are Jewish. There's a lot of Jews in Argentina, which surprised me, in Buenos Aires, that is. So, yeah, real just crazy place to be after the Second World War.
Well, it kind of makes sense because my friend Nate, I do a show with him on locals, and he's black. And he was pointing out, because we were talking about reparations and everything. And he said, well, how's that really going to work? He said, I have white people in my background too. He said, so I'm a direct descendant of slaves and slave owners. He said, so do I get two checks? Do I take one check and then pay it back out? Or how does that work? And I could just totally see any society, you're going to have descendants from, strange bedfellows. And I know that Argentina and Nazis, Klaus Barbie comes out of there. And he went into Bolivia and was tied in with the cocaine trade, then the CIA in the 80s here. These are some of my little subjects that I love to chase around.
That's interesting. It's interesting what you're saying about our ancestry, because I think we do like to always imagine ourselves as sort of the victim side and never the oppressor. And Argentines or Argentinians, they go under both, I guess. They do that very well, because they all talk like to a man. They will talk about how the Spanish colonizers came over, and whereas in Colombia and other South American countries, there was a lot of raping and a lot of mixing, and now you get a lot of indigenous population and a lot of mixes and things. And it's in Argentina, they basically just killed them all. It was brutal what the Spanish did. And the Argentines will speak about what the Spanish did to them without considering that they are the descendants of the Spanish.
Because they were dead. The actual natives were dead. So how could you descend from them?
So they'll talk to me like, oh, you're British, are you? You guys took the Falklands, and you guys look at all the empire and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, 100%. And then they will talk about what Spain did as if it's separate from them. Of course, later they had to fight for independence. So that is why it feels a little bit different from the monarchy. But they were the ones who went over. So we all do that. No one wants to imagine. And if you go back far enough, I'm reading a really interesting book by Catherine Page Harden, who had an argument with Sam Harris that was quite big a few months ago. She's a geneticist, and her book is about eugenics and how we should talk more about eugenics, because just like with minor attracted persons, as we were talking about before, if a subject is extremely taboo and we avoid it, if the scientists avoid it, nobody wants to study it, the only people who have the best access to all of the knowledge are the bad guys, so to speak. So it will be the people who know about minor attracted stuff, that it is them, the minor attracted people. They know every statistic there is to know. It's the reason why we need to sort of read up on it. We need to stop saying it's a taboo. We need to learn, so they're not the only ones with that knowledge. And equally with genetics, she is arguing it's the racists, it's the white supremacists who know the most right now about eugenics. They know everything, and we need to sort of all learn a little bit more about it. But what she said was really interesting about, like, if you go back to, I think it's only something like 2,000 years, and you can find people who every single person in the world now was related to. And if you go back, and just a couple thousand years beyond that, everyone that was alive then is related to everyone now, which is incredible.
Yeah, the Holy Roman Emperor, the main one, I think almost all of us are descended from. They found the paths to him. I forget which one it was. It was like a 600 AD or something. But totally makes sense.
Yeah. It makes the whole reparations argument very, very complex once you go back far enough.
Well, and here's another argument that throws things off. The descendants, because remember, everybody's descending from different people. Well, who put slaves up for sale?
Who put slaves up for sale? I don't know.
Other tribes in Africa.
Right.
They were kidnapping and they were selling. Well, their descendants will be here too. So you literally potentially are giving reparations to, well, anybody.
Yeah, we don't know. And what a horrible thought as well. You have to sort of look back and go, okay, this is your grandfather was good, but yours did some bad stuff, so we're not going to give you the stuff. You know, like it's at the same time, you know, there is inequality and blah. You know, it's complex.
That's one thing I think is interesting, because listening to earlier shows and more recent shows, I feel like you may be getting more nuanced. I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
have you found yourself being changed over time? through
No,
exposure?
I'm getting angrier, and I'm holding it in. I was very when I started the podcast. Actually, this was about a year ago. I was very angry, because and people will feel very differently, and I understand that. I'm going back on myself to be nuanced. You know, I understand both sides and everything, but for about 8 or 9 years, every single meeting I went into with producers, they said, every single one, they said, look, we really like your ideas about, you know, this crazy stuff happening in South America, wherever it is, but we need somebody to present it, as in on screen, who is not a white man. And people will say, you know, well, white men have had it easy for decades or whatever. Some people just deny it's true, but the statistics in the UK at least show that minorities are, by a long distance, the most overrepresented for as an on-screen presence in the UK, and have been for quite a long time now, for many years. And that's increasing as they hire more and more diversity officers at the BBC, and they all get to show that they're doing good things. And that is an argument. Look, people can make that argument that it's fair because of whatever, you know. But I was the one in that meeting, time and time and time again, being told, like, we're sorry, we can't take you. And it was very painful, because it's stuff I've worked on for years and years. And if they'd said to me, look, we just don't like your ideas, that's one thing. But they were saying, we like your ideas. And often they would say, we just need to find somebody who is from a minority background to pretend that it was their idea and go on screen. And it happened time and time again. And I felt...
Which is, by the way, both insulting to you and to the person pretending.
Oh, yeah. I got messages from people when I've mentioned stuff like that, and I try not to so much, because the thing is, it's so easy to fall into being bitter and feeling sorry for yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole thing I want to stay away from. And I know it's not an attractive quality. If I'm listening to someone who's feeling sorry for themselves, a white man from England's, you know, whatever. So that's why I try not to talk about it as much as I did. I started to look back at the first episodes and feel a bit like, it's not that I felt I was wrong or anything. I just felt it's not that attractive. It's taking away a little bit from the guests. And I also think that, you know, the more that I'm angry at that side of things, and I will say, I mean the woke side of journalism, the more I think they are activists, they're not journalists. And if I want to be everything they're not, I've got to stop being so much of an activist myself. I got to stop being that strong on one side. I have to try and accept both sides, because that's what they don't do. So that's what I've started trying to do, just reining myself in a little bit.
You know, I was thinking about that as you were saying it. And I don't know if this is a different view or a way to look at it, but maybe it's just timing. Like, you are getting screwed over because of who you are, because it's this particular point in time. And as far as cultures, I'm looking around, you know, which culture is doing the best? And I'm going to speak states wise, because I don't know that much, you know, outside of it. But Asians, they're kicking ass by pretty much all counts. And, you know, they're doing so well that there are quotas against them. It's easier to get into Harvard as somebody white than being Asian.
Because
that's how good they're doing.
What? Because there are so many Asian people, they're putting quotas to stop it.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's bonkers as well.
Welcome to it. Welcome to the world. But you know why there are so many Asians that are doing that? because it's not like anybody loved them. It's not like anybody gave them a hand. It's not like they weren't abused. They
No.
weren't locked into camps. They weren't mistreated and building railroads, and were essentially weren't technically slaves, but they were treated as absolute garbage. There was no love for them, but they didn't care. They just did their own thing, built their own deal, focused on their own family and getting ahead.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
it's
try to put
cultures.
that to myself that, if there's something I can't control from the outside because society is saying, screw you, well, let me just try to build my own thing and see how I react to it, because that's the only thing I can control.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, and that's what I did with the podcast. That was the idea behind it, and it was really with. I don't lose my temper very often. I'm very mild mannered. I try to be anyway, because I find
Sure.
it unattractive. It's unattractive. I go back to that word because it sums it up for me. It's very unattractive to lose you're losing yourself, and you're showing your animalistic side. And I'm sure many psychologists would say that you should do that sometimes. But I very English, I suppose, in that sense, and I want to keep it all in. But I felt very, very angry. The first 2 years of being told that, I was still young. I was 23, 24. So I wasn't woke as such, but those ideas were at least more appealing to me. They were sort of like, okay, I see, And I almost came out of these meetings like we all do, making myself the hero of my own narrative and sort of going, God, aren't I fantastic? I'm giving up a job for these people, so for people with fewer chances, fewer opportunities than I have. Well, as the years go by, you're not 23 or 24 anymore. Now you're 28, 29, you're getting into your 30s. You need to pay rent, right? And every time I see like adverts for new, journalists and this is in the UK, I can't speak for the US, just constantly we're really looking to speak to people from minorities and things like that, and I'm looking at it going, God, I don't know, and I do get both sides, but I'm also going like, I'm selfish and I care about me because I need to be able to get a job. So I was angry, and I started that podcast, and I had a lot of people like James Lindsay and Helen Pluckrose and a few of those guys, and guys and women.
Sure.
And as it's become more successful, the podcast, it's not there yet where I can earn a living from it, really. It's in between. But as it's become more successful and people have said nice things to me, the anger in that sense has passed a little bit. And that goes back to what we all, we can all theorize about, like, oh, shouldn't we share this and that? When something is happening, it's that old thing, that old phrase, isn't it? Like, when they come for you. And when your job is being affected by it, it's very hard not to be angered by it. And once stuff started going well again, I thought, well, why do I want to talk about that unattractive stuff again? I almost sort of don't. I'm like, oh, that's making me look angry and bitter. Mm-hmm. I've now got, you know what I mean.
Of course. And
Yeah.
the cool thing is, though, you own this. So in a weird way, they backed you in a corner, and let's say it keeps growing and growing, growing. You get up to what, Chris Williamson level or something, and then now it's all yours. And you can say, "Oh, thank you for screwing me over."
Yeah, that would be a nice feeling. There were still hindrances. There's still obstacles. So even as I talk, I can hear the listeners going, well, there are obstacles if you're a minority as well. I get, but there are still obstacles in terms of like, so one of the best ways if you want your podcast to blow up in the UK is to apply for the British Podcast Awards. It's
I was going to say, you're not going to get any awards.
No.
That's unlikely. But
That's the
then,
thing.
What awards is Joe Rogan getting?
Well, I don't even know, but he's just massive and has been going for 15 years. But the thing is, if you're the best of the best, you don't need it. But if you want that leg up, and I did apply, but the thing is, after I applied, I saw that the British Podcast Awards, they weighted it 2/3 for their judges. It's on their website, 2/3 towards what they called value. And we're like, well, what's value? And I don't know what the term was, but I think it was ethnic diversity. So
That's
just
part
a
of it.
white
There's
guy.
another one. They're also weighted to networks.
Networks.
Like iHeartRadio and when you go, you're going to say, why is it always those same podcasts on the top of Apple? Why am I not seeing, other than Joe Rogan, who's independent, but even Jordan Harbinger's part of Podcast One. Adam Carolla is a partner in Podcast One. You've got iHeartMedia. You have Malcolm Gladwell's organization, Pushkin. You've got Freakonomics. You've got the whole NPR side. If you go
Yeah.
look, you're working in that, you've done BBC stuff, go look at it. All
Right.
the people winning are networks.
That's interesting. It doesn't surprise me, to be honest. I mean, I don't know. But now we're sounding bitter and complaining. This is the thing, and it's not attractive.
Well, no, I'm
But
saying that you're doing it on your own. So you're
yeah,
not going to get an award, and you'll prove that you don't need it because you have fans.
yeah, I'll keep applying though for those awards because it is a big boost.
Well, of course.
You never know.
Well, or you'll get big enough to where they can benefit from it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, then it's like, oh, screw you. You want me now, sort of thing.
But you did get an award for a documentary about
Exorcism.
an exorcism.
I did. That was in Texas. That was great in Denton, Texas. Thin Line Festival. The only award I've won in my life. It was the most amazing thing. What a great feeling.
Which I think is very cool because you went out on your own. So can we go into the story? Because you pretty much did your whole documentary out of your hip pocket, right?
Yeah, yeah. So that was, and I still get people. I get people angry at me, going. I've had that on Twitter where they've said, "You're a BBC journalist. You're so privileged." This kind of thing, and I said, I made the documentary with nothing. They said, "Oh yeah, well, how did you pay for it?" So yeah,
How did
I
you?
spoke. So I spoke to the BBC first to say, "Can we? Are you interested in this as a film? This guy's a nutter, this exorcist, and he's so fascinating. He fascinated me because he was so into his movies, and he had pictures of the Exorcist from the movie with his face superimposed over it, all around his church. So I just thought he
Yeah,
was
he's
at
legit.
yeah, he was at the perfect intersection of somebody who's very strange and odd and funny and eccentric, which I love, and also a story that has depth and gravity because real people's lives are being affected. Those are the two things I'll always look for in a documentary story. If it's just weird, then it's a Victorian freak show. If it's just deep, I'm not that interested. A lot of people make deep documentaries.
Sure.
But I need that, eccentricity.
Let's segue again because that's something you've talked about a lot, and I want to cover it because I appreciate it. I want to entertain people, and I want to have fun,
Yeah,
and you seem that way.
yeah, that's what it's about, isn't it? This is one of the biggest problems right now with a lot of censorship and stuff. And I heard Tarantino talking about this. He was saying that good movies come in waves, and often the bad times are when censorship is particularly high, whether it comes from the left or the right. And he talks about the 50s when it was you're banning swear words and you're banning sex and kisses and things like that, and then it gets good again with the liberation. And then it's bad again. And right now, we're in a situation where directors are scared to cast the wrong people, to say the wrong things, to have stories that aren't inclusive in some ways. Often those people who want to, they're criticizing, they're often not artists and creators themselves. And I find it so sad when these people get to go and referee and it gives them some power. And it's like some people are really... I saw that singer Sia. Do you know Sia? S-I-A?
Yeah, the one who hides her face.
Yeah. So she made a film about, I think it was her, because someone will correct me if I'm wrong. She made a film about an autistic child, and she did not cast an autistic child in the role. And Twitter went berserk, and a lot of autistic people started messaging her and public, posting to her,
Right.
and saying, I applied for this. Why didn't I get it? And all this stuff. And Sia eventually replied saying, maybe you weren't that good of an actress.
Yeah, it's called acting.
I know.
And it's like, okay, I need a quadriplegic, so can you go cut your arms and legs off for me?
Oh, man, people made that joke to me in production meetings. When I said, when I wanted to present these documentaries, people said to me, we can cut your arms off for you, you'll have a better chance. And obviously they were joking, but it brought out the craziness because the producers saying this to me, they weren't saying like angrily at me. They were saying it apologetically, like, oh, we're sorry, but this is the way it is and it's ridiculous, but we have to do it. But yes, entertainment gets so left behind. And of course, entertainment is not as important as like making sure everybody can eat, making sure that people have rights and different kinds of things. But if there's no entertainment, what are we here for? It has to have some place. And that is why when I did a film about abortion, which is going to festival next month, there's another one I went to make. I never would have just gone and done a deep, profound one about abortion, because there are enough people who do that. And I almost feel like it's people who would go and watch that are just, patting themselves on the back for watching a worthy film. And I thought, if I'm going to do this, I have to find an eccentric, funny,
You need a
entertaining.
character,
Yeah, and
a
her name was
genuine character, like somebody larger than life that you're going to follow.
yeah.
And I'm guessing you found this guy thinking that he was like Joe Exotic of Tiger King.
Well,
It
Joe
tells you
Exotic's a
that.
perfect example. The abortion one was a woman called the Crazy Baby Lady, so that tells you enough about her, a pro-lifer. So I just sort of followed her and went around with her for a few weeks, and she was nuts and so fun and crazy, but also quite awful as a person. And that was fascinating to me. And The Exorcist, yeah, absolute nutter. Anyway, the BBC seemed interested for like a week or so, and then just didn't get any responses after that. I even met somebody back in London, an assistant of an assistant of an assistant probably, who met me for coffee and said they would take it to their boss, and nothing developed. And I just thought, you know what, screw this, it's been years, I can't get anything made. I'd made a few small things, and after that I just kept going, no, 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 I'll just go and make it. Like, how hard is it? How hard can it be? And especially if you're making this kind of gonzo journalism where you're just, I prefer those films. It is a bit Michael Moore without the politics, just going in with a camera. So I had a friend of mine called David.
John Ronson, a little bit.
Yeah, 100% John Ronson. I love John Ronson. Louis Theroux as well, before he now has quite a big team. But that feeling, I used to love when you'd see Louis go and talk to like a neo-Nazi or something, and you'd see in the mirror the cameraman, you'd see them there, and it was all just rough and ready. I love that, instead of these overly produced stuff. You want to feel like you're really there and that anything can happen. So I got my friend David, who happened to move out to Argentina at the same time, which was extraordinary in terms of luck. And he was getting into camera manning, or whatever the word might be. And he's great. And he was like, yeah, let's go do it. Because, if someone says to you, do you want to go and film an exorcist and do some exorcisms? Why not? Like, it's fun. So we went in, and the only thing you pay for, if you make a film in that way, he had a camera. Fortunately, that's an expense, of course. It wasn't top of the range by any, it was a lower level camera, but he had a camera. We found somebody who lent us a lens. We found somebody lent us a shoulder rig as well from just Facebook. We were just saying on communities in Buenos Aires, can anyone lend us stuff? Maybe we give them 10 pesos, or we get them a drink.
It's all lights anyway.
Yeah, well, we didn't use the lights. We didn't use lights. Yeah, none of that. Literally, camera, a boom microphone that he had to hold while doing the. Yeah, hard when he's doing the camera and holding the thing. Sometimes we got a local guy, like an assistant, like an 18-year-old intern who came along, and he was loving it, and he held the boom.
Oh, cool.
And then lav mics just on our shirts, on my shirt. And that was it. And a shoulder rig for him to hold the camera. That's it. You don't need more than that. Not that we knew what we were doing, but we did courses online, and how to film and how to edit and all that stuff, and just turned up and started filming. And I was on screen, and you start to learn what you're doing. And it's like, don't stand in the wrong place so that you can't see him and me. Don't stand where there's no light. Anyway, we made it. We spent 6 months or so editing it together. He lost his mind at the end, The Exorcist, in a way that none of us could have predicted, and in a way that made the film, because without that, I think we had a good film that, if I was already a famous person, would have made it to TV. But I wasn't a famous person or anything. I'm still not, of course. But him flipping out the way he did and locking me in a room at the end. And that's funny. I think it goes to show the luck you need as a documentary maker, as of that kind, of that ilk. If you go along and it so happens that, Making a Murderer happens, that crazy, they just started filming that as a college project. If you're lucky, the crazy stuff happens around you. And we were really fortunate. He lost his mind for no reason. And then it took 2 years of sending it to different people at the BBC. I was just checking on LinkedIn, BBC commissioner, Channel 4 commissioner, tried lots of channels in the States. They were just impossible to get through to. They're bigger. They're just big. You get through to like the receptionist, and that's it. But the BBC guys, after about a year and a half, somebody got back and said, all right, I'll watch this. And they did. And after a few weeks, they took it. Didn't really give us any money for it. And we got completely screwed with the deal. We didn't know what we were doing. but they took it, and it was the best thing that's happened in our lives, I think.
I'll put you on the map.
Yeah,
And as
yeah.
far as learning as you go, another book. You know the director Robert Rodriguez?
No, Robert Rodriguez.
Yeah, he's best friends with Quentin Tarantino.
Oh,
He
very
wrote a
cool.
book called Rebel Without a Crew, and he did the
Right.
movie El Mariachi, which won Sundance, and it was his
Oh,
first
cool.
movie. He went through medical experimentation to get like $7,000, and he made a movie that wound up winning Sundance. And
Wow.
I thought you might enjoy that because he talks about how he made it, and he did it, of course, in Mexico, and he did all kinds of stunts. Like one, he would hand the dialogue every day so they wouldn't see how many words they actually had. It was a local banker, and he made sure they were always cut before noon so he didn't have to feed them.
Wow.
He had a
Wow.
wheelchair that was his dolly. Anyway, just read the books of Diamond if you're into that
Yeah, I
um,
am. Yeah.
that kind of thing.
So inspiring. It really is. It's just you want to do something like that, you know. And then what is less interesting to talk about, I suppose, is the other stuff. I mean, for me to make money, I was copywriting. I was finding these odd jobs writing. So I would edit. I would do that in the day, then I would edit at night, you know, and sleep like an hour a day. But we were so excited, like editing this crazy. You know, I performed an exorcism, and we were watching that stuff back. That excitement, the adrenaline, got us through sort of 6 months of editing it and putting it all together.
So now, okay. Somebody said Gonzo. That's funny. Gonzo journalism was coined by Hunter S. Thompson, who wrote Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas back in like 72 or 3. And it's essentially immersive journalism where you become part of the story versus just being the witness and the narrator. Would that be a fair definition, you think?
Yeah, yeah, perfect, perfect. I wonder why he called it. I'm sure there's an explanation, but Gonzo, what is that?
He called it Gonzo because he was writing the book and he was just essentially taking every drug known to man. And the like some college kids or whoever he was sharing it with, they were like, "Oh, that's Gonzo, man," and it stuck.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
It was just literally that. It's like, it's kind of like that's wild. Oh, that's Gonzo.
Totally
But
Gonzo, man.
exactly. But on that note,
Yeah,
I'd love to have you back and talk about some of this other stuff. Like, I did want to get into the crazy baby lady who actually is the daughter from what you were telling me, or not telling me, sorry. I always listen to interviews ahead of time, so that way it's like I've been talking to you before I even talk to you. That's
yeah.
just been
You're very
nothing.
well researched. I might say,
Well,
must
thank
say.
you. Um, I don't know if you say George or Jorge Rafael Vedea. I think it was their
Yeah,
father who.
Jorge Vidal.
Okay,
Jorge.
he.
That sounds like I've just gone Jorge Vidal. Jorge
I
Vidal.
know it.
Yeah,
I
Vidal.
can't.
Vidal.
I will not be able to repeat that. That's one of those when I say okay, it's because it's like, yeah, that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Jorge
give
Vidal.
up. But
Yeah,
where
dictator.
they were dumping people out of the helicopter. I mean, really, really evil stuff in there. And
Yeah.
love to talk to you about that. Love what you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
And
Yeah, well, it's been a lovely interview. Really, you're really on it. I love that because sometimes you talk to people and then you can tell they're not even listening. They don't know. You really know the topics and stuff. So it's been a pleasure. Really, please do have me back on. I'd love to come on.
awesome. Well, thank you very much. Everybody can find you on andrewgoldpodcast.com for a one-stop
Hmm.
shop
Yep.
or on the edge with Andrew Gold.
Yeah.
Subscribe on YouTube because your podcast is much bigger than your YouTube, but
Yeah. Face
both are
for
growing.
radio. Face for radio.
No, I've got the face for radio, dude. So I think
Oh
I
man.
can help you with that. You need to remove most of your only audio stuff if you can and focus it
Ooh.
to video because what happens is people go, they see an audio, they don't watch it because they don't want to listen to it. So you can
Uh,
either unlist them
yeah.
and put that in a playlist. So this is for everybody to know. I'll talk about it more later, but YouTube is video, put video, and that will help. I promise.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the old ones were audio, and then I started editing the videos as well. It's just yeah, so it's been a little slower than I'd have hoped on YouTube, but I've also not been able to give it the same time as I did with the audio one until the audio one started to kick off. And now it's like, okay, I've got to really focus on YouTube, get that going as well.
Yeah, and it's tough. It's definitely tough. So wonderful. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed this. Please consider subscribing. Subscribe to Andrew's channel, and see you next time.